Greetings from the ARC Theater and welcome to episode 4 of Young, Gifted, and Black, the ARC Theater's podcast. My name is Kimberly Douglas. I am the director of the ARC Theater. For those of you that don't know, the ARC Theater is a program of building bridges, which is committed to adding resources and programs in support of making a more equitable DC. We do this by bringing our programs in the areas of arts and culture, health and well-being, and economic opportunity. The ARC Theater is located in the Congress Heights community of Southeast DC, and we have a 365-seat theater and a black box space for creative placemaking, convening for town halls, and also space to provide our arts and culture work. The ARC Theater provides a season of programming along with our resident partners and a wide variety of multidisciplinary artistic experiences.
For our listening audience, I will give a background description of my setting as well as myself and that of my guests that are going to be joining the Young, Gifted, and Black podcast today. I am sitting against a white and gray striped wall. I am a Black African-American woman, brown skin with long black braids and a navy blue shirt. My guest, Lanita Jones Morton, is set against a brick background. She has a black blazer and a Black Lives Matter t-shirt on. She is also a Black African-American woman with long, straight hair. Our final guest, Beth Sadler, joins us from the comfort of her living room. She is a white Caucasian woman with a black t-shirt and brown sweater and sandy brown hair. Now, let's join the podcast and have a good time celebrating women's history.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I was hoping that, one, we can just start with a general question. Tell me about your journey into womanhood. What makes you feel strong and what makes you feel empowered in the world? Either one of you can take that question.
You want me to go first, Lanita? Okay. My journey into womanhood. So I think I've been very lucky to have a lot of mentors and other women supporting me through my journey. So it's family members, college professors, mentored by other women in my first job. So I think what makes me feel really empowered and strong are things that I draw from the other women around me. I think that, when I see other people succeeding and my colleagues succeeding, I think I draw strength from that. And then when I'm, in that position, I try to share that and spread that to others too. I think that's what makes me feel really powerful as a woman.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was raised in a family of women. I think that's what makes it a little easier for me in developing into womanhood. Mother, same doctor, she's amazing. Hopefully she's viewing. Raised me to be very confident, very outspoken. I didn't have a lot of challenges in speaking up. I always wanted my voice heard and was very good at expressing myself. And so I think as I even become, after being mentored and then becoming a mentor and mentoring others, I learned the voice is valuable, even if it's a whisper. And I think in that it's helped me get far in my career and help others up and always know that, you're always heard. Somebody is listening and making sure that you're at least talking, even if you feel like nobody's listening, that somebody else can catch that whisper.
No, I love that, because even both of you, from your shared and collective lived experience that we just heard about, you see where you've drawn on family, community, and schools, and just other women who you were able to be exposed to and look to for that guidance. I'll say, even for me, hearing those stories makes me feel comforted that my family also was a great source of empowerment as well as women that nurtured me in my early career and beyond. It's funny, as I left Howard University, my first job was working at Howard University Hospital for the Women's Health Institute. And even then, not recognizing just the strength in being a part of that collective and how that helped me to see the world and the workplace very differently, because I was in a very nurturing environment, but also given the opportunity where people were very hands-on and helping me to learn new skills and to learn how to cultivate how I wanted to show up in the world. So I thank you both for sharing that, because that leads me into, how did you arrive at building bridges across the river? And tell me how your work today is influenced by that impact of you being a woman, now coming into this space where we're focused on equity, and more importantly, just equity and community. Tell me about that. And Lanita, we'll start with you this time.
Love going first. I have a backstory, so I love telling this story. I was connected to Building Bridges Across the River through the theater. I often tell people, I don't know, where it kind of started in 2005, but I am a part of a production company, Focus Theater Production, and we were one of the first stage plays on that wonderful theater. And so I often talk about getting into the arts. I really feel like the art theater and Building Bridges became like an icon to helping us push further into our production company. And the more I was around, the more I saw Building Bridges kind of expanding and growing, and more programming was happening. All of a sudden I looked to the left and there was a farm. Like, there was so many things happening as I was just on the stage. I wasn't a part of anything that was going on in the building, but it kept causing me to ask more questions. And I got really close with the theater director, Kimberly Douglas and Nova Garcia, and they kept bringing me further along into the programming pieces of things. And then I just saw how the community was the focus, and that's always been my focus. I've always loved the community. I always, even in my social work and my mental health, I have been able to reach out to that engagement piece, the collaboration part, and bring people through. But then I was looking through a different lens as I would talk to those in the community, Southeast community, east of the river, and to connect and be able to get a permanent job and position in community engagement and HR, to me, is kind of like a fairy tale story. It's one of those happy endings. I don't know if anybody has the best job. I feel like I had the best job, being able to kind of collaborate and make those connections, ensuring sustainability, looking through that racial equity lens, what that looks like in a global scope for employees and community, and connecting those dots. Because my job integrates both. And so I think it really presents a large picture on how we can engage and how we can serve and how we look at the needs of the community and make sure our programming meets those needs. And so I think the more we grow, the more Building Bridges expands, the more all of our roles expand. I get to play a real big part in the training, the development, the performance, just what that looks like in a larger scope of what we're measuring and what our overall solutions are to make sure we are meeting the needs of the community. And I think that's big. I look forward to it every day. I really do. I don't feel like it's a job until I'm tired. Let me not. But when I'm not tired, I love it, and my smile. We've been behind a mask though for almost a year, so I'm kind of loving talking to you guys without a mask on. But even behind that mask and during these times, I'm still excited and happy to serve the community, and I love what I do.
Look, it's on you, Ben.
Yeah, so I'm in fundraising as director of development, and I was fundraising before my last job. And I think just kind of before joining the team officially, I had been to the ARC campus a couple of times for like a political, like mayoral debate, and then one was a poetry competition for one of the kids I was working with and mentoring. And I was just so impressed with the campus and so excited to see a resource so beautiful in a community east of the river. And you know, as who's kind of fundraising and was thinking about bringing in resources to support work. I mean, it was such a beautiful marriage of kind of my skills and my values. You know, I know there's so many Black organizations and organizations east of the river that have, you know, for so long been, you know, under appreciated, under resourced, not given the same look by local philanthropy as many other parts of organizations in other parts of the city. And I think that's just totally inequitable and unfair. And, you know, that was something that I felt like I could contribute to as a development director. How do we get more attention, bring more awareness, bring more money, right? Financial resources are so important to the work that we're doing. We can't do it without money and support from the broader philanthropic community. And so I think that was something that I felt like I could make an impact on, a skill I could bring in more resources for the incredible work that was happening. And I think the last thing I'll say is that I think it's so special to work at Building Bridges Across the River, because you take all of the kind of we try to take all the competition out of fundraising. Fundraising can be a really competitive industry. You know, there's a perspective that there's only so many dollars to go around, and I don't think that we take that perspective. We take a perspective that, you know, we are an organization that thrives on partnerships, and we thrive by bringing people together, by kind of having all these different pieces, you know, our farm, our theater, our bridge park, our workforce development, all the partners at the Arc. We thrive by kind of having all of us come together. And I think that's a really incredible environment to be doing fundraising in. Kind of the broader ecosystem that we're in is so important. I think we all really bring a level of an understanding that that's a huge value of the work that we're doing.
Man, I love hearing so much about how you all came to Building Bridges Across the River, because it reminds me also of how, as a woman in the world, we feel coming into spaces and wanting to be connected to things that have our shared values, where we feel like we are making an impact, and what is helping us to also be, I guess, examples for another generation. And so I did want to get you all's take on your thoughts about women in leadership, because here's the thing, in today's world, it's like a trend. Oh, women in leadership. But the reality is women have been leading throughout time. Mm-hmm. It's just now becoming something that's out in the forefront, which has to be normalized for today's world. And honestly, I've gotten so much inspiration over the years looking at women in leadership roles in the arts industry, who have like taken the lead in transforming even what that could look like. So I think for me, knowing how you all feel about women in leadership is something like our audience could definitely benefit from, because one, I'm always going to be a proponent of women that are taking that step and that are showing that their voice has power. Because Lenita, I think you said it earlier, you know, having that community of women that helps you build your confidence so that you could speak in a room confidently and know that you're speaking with conviction is so important. So yes, would love to hear your thoughts about women in leadership and what that means for you even today at Building Bridges Across the River.
I'll go first, because I feel like now it is 10 times or 100 times magnified with Kamala Harris becoming vice president. So I think it pushes women. You said it earlier, Kimberly, we've always been in leadership. I think what was taken away was the celebration of them being in leadership. Like, it was hidden behind the scenes. A lot of women are always behind the scenes. But now with Kamala being vice president, things are now a lot more forefront. Like, you feel, you know, you've seen all the memes kind of with the little girls touching the screen and inspired. I think the more we celebrate, the more people will see the impact and the strength it is just in I think the community of women, period. In the past, and I'm saying because I feel like things have changed. I don't like to dwell, you know, in the past a lot, because I want to always give homage to what has changed and things that I believe have accelerated to where women definitely have more of a power or more of a say in certain circumstances and situations. But I think one of the things that I often talk about a lot is the celebration piece, because I was not brought up where a lot of women celebrated each other. I was brought up with, you celebrated what you saw kind of on the outside, not always thinking about the people who worked behind the scenes. And I think that has taken a new look. That has now, we do that differently. But I think it's something that we have to remind ourselves to continue to do, because it can get where you get a little lax and you're celebrating others and always kind of waiting for yourself to be magnified or for yourself to be put on stage before being able to celebrate somebody else. Where I'm getting to the place now, I celebrate everybody, because whenever, I heard somebody say a long time ago that if your neighbor is being promoted or your neighbor is being blessed, that means blessings are coming down your street. So you're next in line. So instead of looking at it as, being kind of jealous of it and not promoting it,
competition,
right? It sets yourself up, like, celebrate it, celebrate. And I think especially during this pandemic and during all the things that we have women in entrepreneurship that never thought they would jump out there and be on their own doing great things. And I think just making those, like, who are those women? Let's find them on Facebook. Let's celebrate them, making kind of and being intentional about looking for those people and pushing them to the forefront. Because I think at the end of the day, there's power in women sticking together. There's power in women coming together and celebrating each other.
No, and Lanita, I appreciate that so much. And because this is our Women's History celebration. Look, I'm going to shout out some special names in our Southeast community, like Denise Rolock Barnes, Wanda Lockridge, Wendy Glenn, Keon Johnson. Is that the married name?
Yeah.
I love Miss Keon, our ANC, India Blocker Ford, Dion Reader Bay. It's so many amazing women working in Southeast and leadership that, yes, they deserve their flowers and accolades, because they are carrying a torch. And to your point, it's been behind the scenes, and we have to acknowledge there are still patriarchal mindsets that exist that perpetuate that behind the scenes is where women belong, when in reality, women have to be put up front. Just alongside the men, because there's power in that and us working together. And Beth, look, feel free to jump in here, because now, look, Lanita got me excited about this celebration, because look, we're in Women's History. We're celebrating, yes, women in leadership. And yes, your thoughts on that are welcome. Always.
Yeah. I think another important thing is, like, as women, that we don't have to be like men when we're in leadership. It doesn't mean that we have to be, I'm not going to go on the stereotypical front, but, I think we can kind of be our authentic selves as women. And if that means that, you're bringing that empathy that you were talking about, Kimberly, that you're bringing, like, we have so much strength. And I think I'm all about kind of like taking a strengths-based perspective, and men have strengths too. But I think when you're looking at women in leadership, we, often bring, lots of different strengths. Some of the same strengths, but lots of different strengths too. And so I think it's really important to kind of be, if you're a humble person, be humble in leadership. If you're a confident person, be confident in leadership. I think it's just about bringing your authentic self as a woman, or whatever gender you are. And I think that's a really important, just an important piece. Like, we don't always have to show up like men do. We can show up as ourselves.
No, I agree. And I so appreciate that. And look, before I ask my next question, look, I was rattling off names, and I can't forget our sister auntie friend, Miss Cora Masters Berry, who has the Southeast Tennis and Learning Center. Look, Lord have mercy. Look, that's my sister auntie friend. She's doing her thing. So shout out to Cora Masters Berry as well, who is doing great things with her recreation wish list and her scholars. Because again, that gave us opportunity to collaborate. And speaking of community and how we're all working together, one thing that always stands out to me about women in leadership roles in working in community is we work in a predominantly Black community, right? And so with that, I mean, how do you feel you best show up in terms of being an advocate and support to address the needs that we have today? Because we spoke about that level of empathy where we're seeing our youth encounter so many challenges from, their literacy levels. And of course, being under resourced and housing and homelessness and food insecurity. And even, yes, the lack of access to the arts and culture world. How do you all feel in terms of women showing up as advocacy impacting those areas? Because I know for me, I feel inspired every day to educate our youth about not only my role in helping them to have access, but then also just their presence in continuing that torch and that legacy so that they're educating another generation behind them. So I'd love to hear your input on, working in community advocacy. Yes. And how do you show up?
Yeah, I would love to answer that because to be honest, I struggled prior to working here in Building Bridges because of my previous jobs. They all kind of took a part in educating, strengthening young people. And I struggled with trying to cover all aspects. Like I wanted to change the world and I wanted it to change like right now. And when I didn't see things changing, I kind of got discouraged. I kind of stepped back. I took a step back feeling like I wasn't effective. I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And I can honestly say working here at Building Bridges helped me change my lens and change my scope because I'm not going to ever be able to change every single area. And so I love the fact how we kind of piecemeal our programming centered around different needs. And so what I learned that I'm good at is the creativity. How do I help shape their creativity? I might not ever be able to help them with their literacy. I might not ever be able to help them with their home environment, but what can I do to make their voice be heard in their arts and culture and their creativity? What are they good at? And I think it helped me strengthen my skill set to learn what I can do best and how I show up in the lives of others and not feel like I wasn't being effective or I wasn't helping in ways that I probably would never be able to because they still go home. There's still things that have to happen in their home environment. But what can I do on this end that one shows them peace of mind, shows them happiness, gives them a sense of what they can do best and how do I help train that and shape that. And I think I have learned how to do that even through our food distribution, just talking, just opening up a safe space for them to speak their mind and give solutions. One thing I love to do when we do have a new program happening or something, we survey the community. We ask them, what do you want? What do you like? And we try to meet them at that need. And I appreciate that. And I like that because I can honestly say before I felt very discouraged that I was not helping. And I do feel now I'm helping a whole lot more because I've learned where I'm supposed to show up and inspired by others seeing what they're able to do and not try to be like others. Let me do what I'm good at and let others do what they're good at and stay in my lane. And I feel more effective and I'm glad that I'm able to serve that way.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
My story is very similar and very different. Started when I first moved to DC. I was working at kind of at the federal, national level, kind of policy advocacy, and I was really into fighting for civil and human rights. And I was really interested in the world of advocacy and policy and lobbying, and I'm still very interested. I still think that's an important role to play. But I think being white and not from DC and not living east of the river, I feel a responsibility to kind of be led by the community who is living in DC and from DC. And so I think advocacy to me as a kind of white non-Washingtonian means really thinking more about the privileges that I have and using those to kind of like create more space for other people to lead rather than kind of taking up more space. And being that kind of rooted in where I live. I think that was another shift that I made was kind of recognizing what it means to move to DC as a newcomer, and how does that impact the work that I want to do? And to me, that meant using my privileges as a white person, as the power I have as a woman, all of the identities I hold that give me access to different spaces. And yeah, learning how to navigate those to bring more resources into the community that we're working in. And, you know, that, like Lanita's saying, like, sometimes that's a struggle. I don't always know exactly what to do or how to do it, or, you know, sometimes I miss the mark. But I think for me, the way I show up is to try to build relationships with the people, to where people can, you know, we can call each other in, right? Like we can, you know, if I'm showing up in a way that's not serving the community, right, then, like, you know, I have relationships where people can tell me that. And so I think that's really important ground and foundation that I try to stand on when I'm showing up. So, yeah.
No, and I so appreciate that, because I mean, at the core of it, what I heard from both of you is how deep listening is informing you, how you're showing up today, and how that impacts your, you know, idealized version of how you're showing up right now in terms of working at Building Bridges and doing this amazing work. And you're right, it's not always, I'll say there's beauty in imperfection. You know, I'll say, Beth, you're the newest of our team members on this in this conversation. But I will say, you know, there are a lot of times where you do feel like you're failing. But the idea is that so many people have grown to have an affinity and trust for us because they know we're the people that's going to keep showing up. Right. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep trying new things because we are committed to hearing and trying to realize that community voice, so people understand, like, no, we are listening. We do want your vision to come to be. It just takes steps to get there. And I think through every opportunity that we have to learn from each other, and also, you know, continue to grow by collectively working, it helps us to reach that goal. So I appreciate both of you for, one, having that vision, and also staying focused on, look, the end game, the end goal, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that, yeah, the Congress Heights community is thriving. So we're approaching our last question. And again, I so appreciate both of you all for joining us in this Women's History, Young, Gifted, and Black, the ARC Theater podcast, because for us, this has been an incredible way of transitioning our work in a virtual space. So we're still reaching folks that need to hear about what we do and learn about how we can deepen the impact. So hopefully this is something that grows beyond the pandemic, that keeps us at the front and center, so people know what's happening in Southeast DC and also what we're doing at Building Bridges. So to close out, what words, I should say, of advice would you give to women aspiring to leadership, or just aspiring to make it in the world? What advice would you give?
I'm gonna let Beth go first.
Yep, you've been taking the lead, girl.
I would say, I mean, kind of the theme that we've been kind of going off on around kind of listening and relationship building and lifting each other up. I think finding mentors for yourself, people that you trust and can rely on, that you know will have your back and will help lift you up. And then, you know, paying that forward, right? Always lifting up other people, and who else can you bring up with you? I think that's a key learning that I've had, and I think will serve me kind of through the rest of my leadership journey.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that. So I'm just adding to that. I think also finding your love, like finding what you're good at, finding what you're confident in, and celebrating every step of that win. Because I think sometimes we want to see ourselves farther along and forget the journey that got us to where we are. And so we're always kind of pushing and forgetting that, wait, I've done pretty good for myself. Let's celebrate that. You know, and you're going to hear me say that a lot, celebrate, because I think if we don't keep celebrating every single step, we can sometimes forget how we've gotten to where we are, and we are pulling people without always celebrating or uplifting, and the journey becomes harder than it should, because peace should kind of still ride in that journey. Your passion should still ride in that journey. It never should feel hard when you're doing what you love and what you're passionate about. Find that niche, find who you are, and show up.
No, I appreciate that, and I'll just add a few additional words there. Look, I've been doing good this podcast, not talking too much. Some people are like, you're talking too much. But no, I would say, look, as I say that, be unapologetic of showing up as your full self. And when I say that, it's about not shrinking yourself and knowing that you have the right to shine just as bright as anyone else in the room. I think, at times for a lot of women, people are like, oh, you're too much. Girl, be too much. Like, I think it's okay. I think it's welcome, because that's what makes the beauty of our world is people that are different. You may have some introverted, some extroverted, some people, what do they call ambiverts, whatever. I mean, it's all welcome at the end of the day. And I think people just want to know you're real and you're honest about who you are and how you're showing up. And always don't stop learning. Learn from other people. As you said, Beth, that mentorship. And also, yes, celebrate the wins along the way. Because you're right, Lanita. It's easy to get stuck and feeling like you're not at the level you want to be at. But the reality is you're at that place for a reason and time, and you have to value that part of the journey. So with that, we are going to close out our 4th episode of Young, Gifted, and Black at the Arc Theater. I want to thank Beth Sadler and Lanita Jones Morton from joining and from the Building Bridges Across the River team. And we're happy. We're going to share out some more women on the team as we close out this episode of Women's History Month. So look, we're celebrating. Yay. Look, yeah. Thank you to all the
Kimberly Douglas.
Oh, well, look, thank you guys. And thanks. Look, I'm inspired every day by the incredible women that not only are directors, but also just show up every day to be a source of inspiration and support for the community. So thank you all. And look, and as I close out, I remember one of my other good friends who I did not mention, Brenda Jones. Oh my God. Look, I'm like, see, it's so many countless women that are doing amazing work. And man, Brenda Jones was a part of our resident partners at one point with Parklands Community Center. Been working in the community over 50 plus years. Amazing woman and mentor to me, and just a great support. So look, it's fitting that we close out mentioning Brenda Jones, because look, that's my sister friend who I love dearly. Look, sister auntie friend. Thank you all for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Good seeing you all. Thank you, Kimberly.
Being a natural, nurturing being is something that brings me joy as a woman. One of my favorite quotes is by Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, and it is, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. And this quote alone just brings me so much joy, because it's a reminder that as a woman, my voice is valuable, so I should be heard. And it's a reminder that I can do and be anything that I set my mind to.
Michelle Obama once said that there is no limit to what we as women can accomplish. I am proud to be a woman because every day I break barriers, no matter how big or how small that may be. That is why I am proud to be a woman.
I'm proud to be a woman because I feel like women bring a really subtle strength to the table. I see this a lot with women on the national scene like Stacey Abrams and Latasha Brown, but I also see it in the women I work with and the women around me. A strength that is sometimes not noticed, but is always there underlying and is very powerful.
Once Katherine Johnson said, girls are capable of doing everything men can do. We just have more imagination than men. And with that being said, women are smart and women are strong. Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month.
Happy Women's History Month.